One of the first major jobs when taking over any side in Football Manager is setting up a tactic to get the very best you can from your new side. There are loads of ways to approach this, and there is no right or wrong answer. Some virtual managers like to rely on the presets, not really dipping into the tactical side of the game at all, and buying the best players they can for each role included. Others like to micromanage every aspect, diving into the data hub and looking at every possible metric to decide on minor tweaks between each match. I tend to fall somewhere in the middle. I like to create my own tactics and tweak them as I go when I feel aspects can be improved. I've also enjoyed saves in the past where I focused more on the data and used that to drive my decision making, but in general I tend to rely more on what I see in the match engine and what I know my squad can offer. So in today's video, I'm going to talk through my process for creating a tactic from start to finish. Firstly, let's talk philosophy. I promise I'll stop mentioning this in every single video eventually, but I play Football Manager with a pragmatic style. That means that I will adapt to the needs of a situation and the skills of my available players in order to succeed. This doesn't mean that I don't have a preferred tactical philosophy. I like fast-paced, exciting football, but can and will only implement this if I feel it's the best approach at the time. If not, it's something I'll aim to work towards with my approach to training and recruitment. For me, the shape always comes first. To get the ball rolling, I put the players that I think can have the most impact into the role I think they'll be best in. These will be tweaked at the end though to make sure the balance in the side is right. The starting shape that I pick is completely irrelevant because I tend to move players around to try out new ideas, but as I'd like to play with a front two if it suits, I'll select the 4-2-2-2 for now. Pedro Malheiro is the first name on the team sheet for me and absolutely needs to be allowed the license to get forward at every opportunity. He goes in as a complete wingback on attack. Next up is Sebastian Perez, El Capitan. He's going to be doing the dirty work in the midfield, although I'm not sure on the exact role I want yet. For now, I'll drop him in as an anchorman and then I can decide once I have a better idea of the roles around him. As I'm not overly thrilled with my options on the wings, this 4-2-2-2 is starting to look like a more appealing option the more I look at it. With Robert Bozanic now at the club, joining Heriel DeSantis and Martin Tavares, I think we definitely have enough firepower to make a front two work. Bozanic will be the focal point, so he'll be my target forward, on attack for now. As they're so similar, DeSantis will probably need to accept being his understudy, so Tavares will be alongside Bozanic as an advance forward in order to stretch defences. Behind them, Bruno Lorenzo is our best attacking midfielder, and he slots straight in. It's likely to be a playmaker shadow striker combination, and Lorenzo has the attributes to play as either, but for now we'll put him in as an advanced playmaker. From there, we can fill out the rest of the side. The defensive unit will be kept nice and simple. I generally prefer a sweeper keeper, but as João Gonçalves' distribution isn't great, I'll use him as a simple goalkeeper and just ask him to focus on keeping the ball out of the net. Similarly, Abascal and Awaziem will be the centre-back pairing, but as neither have exceptional quality on the ball, they will just be standard central defenders. At left back will be Bruno Onyemaechi, as I like to build up in either a 2-3-5 or 3-2-5 shape, and Malheiro will be consistently attacking on the right hand side. I'll need Bruno to invert to keep the balance. Due to his limited passing ability and centre-back's frame, I'll use him as an inverted fullback so that he can tuck in and create a back three in possession. There are a few players who could fill the role of the second number 10. There isn't really a standout between Masaki Watai, Salvador Agra and Thiago Moraes, but one thing they do all have in common is the goal threat to play as the shadow striker that I'm looking for. For now, Agra gets the privileges of seniority. The last spot left to fill is the other defensive midfielder alongside Perez. Interestingly, there was a dilemma here, as the man most likely to fill the spot, Gaius Makuta, likes to be a runner from deep, and that kind of profile wouldn't suit the balance of the team. Fate handed me a way out though, as Gaius announced his intention to explore his options at the end of his contract, which he was into the final year of. With interest from a whole range of sides and our finances in poor shape, I decided to cash in, with Brest eventually signing him for 2.1 million. With Makuta gone, Ilya Vukitic becomes the man in possession, and fortunately his profile suits perfectly. He can slot in next to Perez as a deep line playmaker, giving me the positionally aware pivot I'm looking for. Vukitic's inclusion allows for a couple of tweaks to other roles too. As he will have a partner who will hold their position, Perez doesn't need to be quite as limited as he will be as an anchorman. Switching him to a ball-winning midfielder on support will still provide the bite I'm looking for from him, but also unlocks a lot of the individual instructions that would restrict him in possession, allowing us to make more use of his passing ability. Having a playmaker in the pivot also means that Lorenzo can switch to a shadow striker. The logic is that the creativity can come from deep, and the two shadow strikers are both free to cause carnage, drifting out wide or running beyond the strikers. They'll hopefully cause confusion over who should be picking them up, and use that confusion to find themselves some space. So with an 11 selected and preferred roles figured out, we can start to look at instructions. As the formation dictates our defensive shape, let's start with the out of possession instructions. I'm going to ask the team to sit in a mid block with a standard defensive line while pressing slightly more often and funneling players to the inside. Due to our status as a mid-table side, I want us to remain compact. Although we essentially have a front four we can press with if we commit high, I'd rather keep them in a slightly more restrained mid block and focus the shadow strikers on pressing opposition pivots. If there's a double pivot, then we can go man for man. If a side has just a single holding midfielder, then we have the option of either doubling up on him or using our spare man to focus on a dangerous player in a different position. I'm also wary that although we have enough pace in our defence to potentially play with a high line, teams with more quality than us would be able to play through us and still get their strikers in one-on-one. By staying slightly deeper, we reduce that risk. The decision to trap inside is based on the shape we've chosen, as we want to avoid sides isolating our fullbacks one-on-one wherever possible. Making them turn inside and play through a back four and two deep midfielders should make us harder to break down. Everything we've done so far has been to set up the movement of our players and plan how we're going to keep our opposition out, but now we need to turn to the instructions that will actually dictate how we're going to play. Due to the shape and roles we've chosen, we've essentially split the team in half. We're trusting the defensive unit to be good enough to keep us solid and keeping our attackers very high. Because of this, we're going to need to maximise transitions and be good on the counter-attack. To push this, we're going to up the tempo the whole way. I'm not adjusting the passing directness because I want us to play quick football, not long ball football. Although we play a narrow shape, I still want players to be able to find their own spaces, so I'm going to ask the side to play slightly wider in order to make sure that the attacking players in particular aren't occupying the same spaces. As we have 3 players in the advanced forward and 2 shadow strikers who are going to drift and run the channels, I want us to pass into space rather than focusing entirely on passing into feet. Finally, as all of our strikers offer a strong aerial threat, I want to try to maximise that by floating our crosses and giving us the best chance of attacking them. The in-transition instructions are pretty self-explanatory. In order to maximise our attacking transitions, we want to counter-press to try and win the ball back as soon as the opposition hit our line of engagement, and then when we do, we want to counter at every opportunity. To maximise this further, we're asking our keeper to distribute quickly in the hopes of catching opposition out before they can regroup. Finally, we need to look at individual instructions that we can use to tweak some of the roles further. I rarely use a massive amount of player instructions, and often use them as what I call modifiers, something I'll use against a particular shape or opponent to counter a specific threat or to exploit a weakness. There are a couple in this tactic from the get-go though. The deep line playmaker is asked to dribble more, which may sound counterintuitive, but it's essentially the linker role between the defence and attack, so if they can progress the ball sometimes through carrying rather than passing, then it just adds another dimension to our play. The shadow striker on the right is asked to roam from position, while the left hand side is a slightly more complicated affair. As there is no width being offered from the fullback on the left, I'm trying to create a kind of false winger effect from the shadow striker. My hope is that by asking them to stay wider, run wide with the ball and roam from position, they'll start central before pushing out to where a winger would traditionally end up. From there, I'm asking them to cross more often and aim for the target man, in order to again replicate what a winger would be asked to do. Of course, it won't happen during every attack, but it should at least help to keep the opposition right backs occupied. So we've put together a tactic, and in theory I'm happy with it. I feel a little bit like I've gone down the Erik ten Hag route, where I'm banking on us being good enough in attacking transitions to win games based on moments, rather than sustained pressure. I'm fully expecting us to be on the wrong end of a few hidings this season, as the approach won't always be right, and the players won't always be at their best. Add to this our lack of squad depth, and we could have some really poor days. However, at least for this first season, I've tried to build a tactic that lets us beat the teams we're expected to beat, and hopefully we can threaten the better sides too along the way. Pre-season gave me reason for optimism, with impressive wins over Pauk and Sturm Graz in particular. We also secured early progress in the Allianz Cup, with wins over Vizu and Moreirense. 5 games into the league campaign, we're looking okay. We started excellently with a win over Braga, a side I did not expect us to beat, especially so soon into our reign. From there we went away to Sporting Forenza and secured a really convincing 3-1 win. Our first blip, if you can really call it that, was a 0-0 draw away at Famalicão. Our attacking play was really poor with not a single shot on target, but we also defended resolutely and João Gonçalves was fantastic in goal. Next up were Benfica, and they came and did exactly what we expected them to do, beat us. At 2-0 down after half an hour I thought we could be on the end of a hiding, but we came back into the game and created a few chances of our own, and although we couldn't convert any, we at least showed them what we're about. Lastly, another solid win away at Arouca. We defended well again, and were able to convert a couple of our chances to seal the points. So the tactic is built and the season's off to a promising start. Let me know down in the comments below how you approach tactics in Football Manager, and if you've enjoyed the video, please drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload. Until next time.